cometh in the morning. This is what I know. This is where I put my trust. This is how I go to sleep at night. This is what keeps me from tossing and turning. Do you know, I had a probably once a year experience last night. I didn't go to sleep till 4:50 this morning. I presume that's because of jet lag. But I seldom, Sister Barbara says that, if we're having a contest who can go to sleep first, I always win. By the time I get my pillow and go, 2 wiggles. You know why? Because I basically trust God. Do all I can before I go to bed, and then it's like, you know what, Jesus, if you want to worry about this, I'll leave it with you. I'm going to sleep. Maintaining the right attitude is easier than regaining an attitude. Maintaining the right attitude. Do you know what consumes the energy of a car or of an airplane is the acceleration to get to cruising speed? What devours the most petrol in a jet is the takeoff. Is gaining the altitude. Once you get the altitude, and you can maintain your altitude rather not very stressful. But if you lose altitude, if you lose attitude, so what you want to work at in being consistent and persistently, intentionally apostolic, is you want to work at maintaining the right attitude. Get the right attitude and then work at maintaining it. Some of us, our biggest problem is because we're crash dive, and just before we splatter, we pulling back on the stick, and we just barely clip the treetops. Leaves are in our propellers or in our jet. The ducks on the ground are running for cover. We've come in so low. And then we climb and we're happy, and then I know something about that. I lived all of my teenage years like that. Roller coaster. Click, 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 clickety, click, 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 click. Your stomach up there somewhere. Oh, God, help me, God, oh, God. Paul didn't pray that the church wouldn't have problems, but he did pray that they would keep a good attitude. So, how do I do that? How do you maintain an attitude? How do you maintain attitude? Jesus told the disciples how. He said, pray this prayer. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. That's one way. In other words, you don't wait until you get into the situation before you decide what your attitude's going to be. Forgive us this day. At the beginning of the day, you get up and you say, here's my attitude. When I'm wronged today, I already know how I'm going to respond. I'm going to respond in forgiveness. Why? I've been forgiven so much that I can't afford to not forgive. I make so many mistakes and Jesus is so merciful to me, I cannot afford to not show mercy. So here's my attitude altimeter for today. I'm going to forgive. I'm going to ask God now to help me, to lead me not into temptation. Deliver me from evil. God, help me today make decisions that will steer me around potential problems. So you pray ahead of time. So when trouble comes my way, I've already made a decision about keeping a good attitude. Now, Here's the reality of life. Just being around people means you're going to have problems. Guess what? People are everywhere. You notice that? Especially in Singapore. It's even worse if you go to China. Sister Jenny said one of the hardest things is trying to have a private conversation in China because people are leaning over your shoulder, listening. And so most of our problems are people problems, and you're not going to escape people. So you got to make up your mind ahead of time. How am I going to respond to these people? Number 2, realize the rough weather won't last forever. The King James has a beautiful phrase, especially when you're reading through the Old Testament. It'll say, and it came to pass. Now it means literally, that a period of time passed. But I like to change the words and the meaning in a little bit and say it came in order to pass. In other words, it didn't come to stay. The reason things come in your life is not to stay. They come to pass. Nobody's amused with my play on the words. Okay. But rough weather don't last forever. Good news is the bad news can be changed into good news when you change your attitude. Did you get that? The good news is that the bad news can be changed into good news when you change your attitude. John Maxwell says, circumstances don't make you who you are, they reveal who you are. Anybody ever, in other words, the real us comes out during pressure time. You don't know how strong you are until you're put into a pressure situation. Anybody here ever prayed and said, say, God, I want to be fruitful? Anybody? Come on, you big chickens, wave your hands. Prayed to be fruitful. Okay? Then don't complain when God squeezes you. Because you can't tell what kind of fruit until you squeeze the juice out. So some of the stuff that's happening to you, it's an answer to your prayer. Oh, God, I want to be fruitful for your kingdom. God goes, and you go, wait a minute. He says, I just want to see what kind of juice you got. Are you a bitter gourd or? You know, it's easy to put on a good show and everybody says, oh, you're such a sweet person. But what happens when someone squeezes your fruit? Someone does an injustice to us. Or the people are slow in the line. And you're... Bad attitude, you know, some people are fond. This is their concept about life. I have a bad attitude because I have a stinking life. Probably you have a stinking life because you have a bad attitude. I mean, if anybody had a reason to complain, Joseph had a stinking life. Okay. You don't believe me. I did some underlining here recently. Let me see if I can find it. Just some adjectives here. Okay, this is Jacob. This is Joseph. I just underlined it. His brethren hated him. Could not speak peaceably to him. Verse 5, hated him yet the more. Verse 8, hated him yet the more. They hate you. It's bad enough. I hate you, Timothy Lee. And I come back a week later and I say, you know what? I hate you more than I did last week. And then you come back 2 weeks